here's this thing happening right in your country, and it's probably the last sport in this country that's this big that goes unnoticed. It doesn't cross the threshold of mass popularity, but it's also gigantic, and it's happening right in front of you, and you don't even really know it. It's really the last great American sport.
Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted it, you got it. The place for the untold, real, raw, and juicy stories of dirt track racing. It's Dirt Track Confessions. And now here's your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dirt Track Confessions. I'm your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney, and I am extremely pleased to welcome a very special guest on with us, Michael Rigsby. How are you? What's going on over there?
The special guest introduction. I love that. I'm excited. I've been elevated to special guest. I'm excited. I'm good. It's another rainy, gray day in central Illinois where it feels like we will not begin racing here for another 7 months.
Oh
hopefully soon. I know you're in the Northeast, so you know exactly what that looks like.
Yeah, it's not even, well, as we're recording this, the whole, what is it, April showers bring May flowers. It's
right.
just, everyone wants to be the first ones to race, and here we sit. So, okay, I want to give a little backstory on Michael. So Michael is an Illinois native, right? His grandfather used to race, so he grew up, of course, watching the dirt fly at Fairbury Speedway.
That's right.
So local dirt boy here. So he graduated with a degree in journalism, went off to become a local TV station sports anchorman. Is that correct?
You got it. I got
my facts.
So far, so good. Yep.
Yep. And in the midst of all of this, which I'm just so excited to really dig deep into, is him and his wife birthed what we know today as DirtOnDirt.com. I'm assuming it was back in the early 2000s. However, so what I found was incredibly interesting was that, in 2000, I think it was, okay, this fact check me, 2007?
That's right, 2007. Yeah. You got it.
So you and your wife, you guys, you quit your jobs. Is that
yes.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, you've got, I don't even need to, you got it all. You've got everything correct so far.
Google it works miracles. So both him and his wife, Amber, they quit their jobs to make this dirt late model website just take off. And as it did. So I'm going to need just some serious backstory here. Because to me, I'm wondering, what was it like when you and your wife both looked at each other and decided, we need to put all of our eggs into this basket? You both believed in that vision together. To me, that's just, it's incredible. So how did you come to that decision? God, we've been together 20 years this week, actually. So
congratulations. I'm a romantic that remembers things like that. My wife does not keep track of things like that. I reminded her this morning on March 26th was our first kiss 20 years ago today. I reminded her this morning. She did not remember any of that, for the record. So I was a journalism degree from Illinois State. I, just like every young journalist, wanted to go be a sports anchor. I ended up being on SportsCenter. But as you said, you grew up in central Illinois, Farmer City every Friday night, Fairbury every Saturday. You love dirt track racing. My grandfather competed at Fairbury when I was a kid in midgets, actually. He was not a late model guy at all, which is so funny. My open wheel friends tease me about that now. But you grew up at Fairbury, which is one of the epicenters of late model racing. You love dirt late model racing. So I go through college, cover racing in college and stuff, but my career is I'm going to go to northern Wisconsin. You may or may not know this, but when you get your first journalism job, you go wherever it takes you. Mm-hmm. Butte, Montana, wherever in upstate New York, Binghamton, New York. Mine was Rhinelander, Wisconsin. So I got my first journalism job in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. I quickly moved to Madison. Was progressing pretty quickly. My career was taking off. I was getting ready to hire an agent, and I was kind of ready to go through the process. But it was about 2005, 2006, 2007, where I would still attend these dirt track events and go to Eldora, and there's 20,000 people at Eldora. And it sounds funny to say this now, but the internet was really taking off, right? There's this thing called the internet that was really exploding at the time. Kids are like, what the hell is he talking about? It's not always been around. And I was like, so I go to Eldora, and there's 20,000 people there, and I have a media background, and my wife was actually an on-air DJ. She was an on-air DJ. And she was phenomenal at it. She was a PR director of her radio station in Madison. She followed me to Rhinelander. She followed me to Madison. She always reminds me of those things. And I was like, if we could marry these things together somehow, the internet's coming up. I have a media background. Todd Turner, who's to me the greatest dirt track journalist of all time, even Kevin Kovac would tell you that. He was our first employee, and I said to Amber, like, I think there's a market for this. If we could take this instantaneous coverage model, put it on the internet, there's clearly a market. There's 20,000 people at many of these events. I think there's something to this. And I started to build it in 2006, and I realized I can't be a on-air news reporter and do this at the same time. So I went to Amber and I said, honey, I have an idea. We were not married at the time yet. I said, I have an idea. But I said, if we're going to do this, we have to do it. And I remember we were sitting around my dining room table, and she's like, I'm in. I'll quit my job if you want to quit your job. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And we, of course, said, you're working in television. You have no money. You have nothing. We're like, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to move in with your parents, which we did. So we both quit our jobs. We pushed every chip we had into the center of the table. We hired Todd Turner as our first employee. We moved from Madison, Wisconsin to St. Louis, Missouri. And on September 4th, 2007, we drove to Eldora and we launched Dirt on Dirt at the World 100 in September of 2007. And that was the beginning was there.
I think, is that when you knew I'm going to marry her? Because I don't know if I would even do that for my husband.
You and your husband both have extensive racing backgrounds. My wife did not, right?
No,
So, she is the light of my life, and I'm not saying that to be coy or cheeky. She is an incredible woman who deserves everything that she's ever gotten. And yes, I think I knew before that, Mandee, but plans for marriage immediately escalated after she said, let's do that. And, you know, it took off quickly. It was, you know, Amber also set the 10x10 tent up at every event we went to. She was doing 100 plus a year, tearing it down, setting it up by herself, selling subscriptions like crazy and apparel. And it took off quickly. And by 2009, we were growing. And then, you know, all the way to 2019, we were over 35 employees in total between part-time and full-time when we sold it to FloRacing. It was a wild 12 years, and it still is going, you know, many years later.
Now, tell me you know Gary V.
Gary V?
No, you don't know Gary Vaynerchuk?
I don't think so.
Okay, you're gonna have to look him up. You're gonna have to look him up. I don't know why, but you're reminding me of him because he's like the foreseer. You know, he's amazing, phenomenal podcast vlogger, like social media.
Okay.
Kind of guru, and he was pretty much like, I think it was they're from New Jersey, and I know this is a total side note, but his family had this huge wine business, and people thought he was crazy because he was like, I'm going to sell wine online. And people are like, how can you do that? You know, like, but he saw it, like you saw with Dirt on Dirt, like you saw it, and like it bloomed into what it is, which just gives me chills because like you believed it and you made it happen, which is incredible.
There was one of my great friends in life. His name is Mike also. I will never forget, and he's still one of my best friends. When I told him, I said, he was a local news reporter at the other station. I was at the NBC affiliate. He was at the CBS affiliate. I said, hey, let's go grab a beer. We go to get a beer, and I said, hey, I want to tell you I'm leaving, and here's my idea. And his exact words were, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. It will never work, and you're going to throw your career away. Many, many, many years later, I remind him of this, especially when we sold the company. I remind him of this once a month about what he said to me. So
it's so funny. And I talk about that all the time on this podcast is, you know, the vision was planted in you for a reason, and like no one else has to see it but you and your wife. I mean, obviously that helps too.
Yeah, and that's when you're young, you think people who own businesses must have everything figured out. Really, it's the ability to take the leap. That's all this is. Can you take the leap? Can you take the leap and make the move? And it's hard. It is hard for people to want to do that, right? Yeah. And I get it. You get older in life and you get settled in a routine, but you're never too old. My wife and I are still starting other businesses, right? Yeah. You're never too old to do it. Take the leap, man. Take the leap for sure.
Okay. So speaking of, it was... You know, so FloRacing ended up buying Dirt on Dirt, correct?
That's correct. FloRacing bought Dirt on Dirt in September of 2019. I became the general manager. My role has changed a little bit at Flo. My first thing was stay at Dirt on Dirt through the calendar year, get that over with. Then Mark Floriani, the founder and CEO, said to me, go get me rights, go get me the Chili Bowl, go get me Eldora. And I did all that. Then shortly after that, I pivoted to general manager. So my title is general manager of FloRacing, which I've been at 4.5 years now, which is hard to believe.
That's insane. So, okay, this fantastic thing that just popped in my head is, how did you, I don't know if suffice is the word, but how did you know, like, it was time to in a sense, let go of Dirt on Dirt? Like, that was your baby.
Yeah, very hard thing to do, right? And it took me a lot of, and Flow had kind of been chasing us for a little bit. So for those that don't know, Flow Sports has 23 verticals: wrestling, grappling, racing, cheerleading. I think when we sold our company, Flow Racing was vertical 20 out of 23, and within 18 months had become vertical number 1 after they bought Dirt on Dirt, as far as subscribers and viewership goes. And to answer your question, I just, again, trying to see ahead, I could see the interest being piqued in larger media groups into short track racing. I could see the pivoting nature of where streaming was headed and the idea that everyone was going to have their own streaming platform. And I felt that was about 12 to 18 months away from happening. And candidly, we were presented an offer from Flow that was phenomenal, and coupled that with the direction and the battle that I thought I was going to have to fight over and over and over and over again coming up. You couple those two things with Mark Floriani. I want to give him a ton of credit, the CEO of Flow. He sold me on a vision of what we could build. And I think we are building that. And I told him, I said, I don't want late model fans to be late model fans and big block and sprint car. I said, I want them all to be together. I want them to appreciate each other and love each other. I will always be tagged as the late model guy because of my background, but I do love all these genres of motorsports, and I want all of these other fans to love them too. So that was kind of the final linchpin, was my kitchen table, which is right above me. Mark sitting at that kitchen table with me.
Oh, I'm literally like, wait, are you hanging your kitchen table on your ceiling?
No. It's I'm downstairs. It's upstairs.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Mark and I sitting there on a whiteboard and sketching out how these fan bases would become intermingled, which we see a ton now on FloRacing. And that was the final thing. It was, I could kind of see the future coming. The offer was very good. And yeah, this vision of this harmonious world of short track racing really sold me. And that was like, okay, we shook hands and said, I'm going to do it. Let's sell it. So.
Okay, I love that, because we're absolutely circling back to that, because that is definitely one of my key points of the intertwining, and it's a genius business model. But let's kind of circle in back to you. Is like, what is it that you actually do? What does a typical week look like? Let's say like in the summertime. What does it look like for you?
So my role, what's interesting about Flow is I was the first vertical to have a GM. Wrestling didn't have one. Grappling didn't have one. They're kind of like, well, and everyone calls me Rigsby. Very few people call me Michael. You can call me whatever, Mandee. It doesn't matter. Most of the other verticals were, the people didn't have an on-air presence that I kind of had, and I kind of felt like a little bit like the name brand of late model racing was Dirt on Dirt, and my presence on air, I think, helped build that. That comes across wrong, and I don't mean it that way, but we spent 15 years building that, right? So me kind of staying on air was a big part of that. But as Flow Racing quickly grew, we have sprint car racing and late model racing and pavement racing and drag racing. There is so much to make sure is going correctly and to ideate about ideas that need to grow, that it took me off the air more and put me in a role of, what are the 5 or 6 biggest, this is what I get up every morning and say, what are the 5 or 6 biggest challenges facing Flow Racing right now, right? Okay. And for instance, one of them is, and like we have great friends at Dirt Vision's like some of our great friends in the world. Like I love Brian Dunlap, but Brian Carter and the team. I think everyone thinks like, oh, you can't talk good about them. Like I love those guys. They're great. Right? I get along with them incredibly well. One challenge we have, they don't, is we have 1,800 races, and they're probably more in that like 500 or 600 range. So we have scalability challenges that we face that others don't. So when I'm asking myself every morning, what are the 5 or 6 biggest challenges that face us, I'm trying to tackle those challenges. One of them may be marketing. One of them may be production. One of them may be content. One of them may be Rigsby. Hudson O'Neill has left the Rocket House car. Holy shit, you got to go on air because people want to hear from you talk about that. So making sure that the vision of the overall vertical is headed the right direction is in essence what my job is. And I know there's people that are going to say, man, but I wish I could see you on air more. And I wish I could do those things too. But there's so much that goes into making sure High Limits productions look good. So I got to be involved in that, or XYZ. It's just making sure the trains are running on time as we continue to grow and try to keep up with it.
Okay, so you oversee a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot to put on you. Just putting that out there.
Yes, I agree. I need like 7 assistants. If you could please tell Mark Floriani this would be great.
I will write him a personal letter. I got
Thank you.
So, what would you say? Okay, I love that you wake up and you ask yourself those questions. Like that is so key. But what would you say drives you in this sport?
When we started Dirt on Dirt, this sounds so stupid, but it's true. All I wanted people to care about was this thing that I cared about. And what I mean by that was, like, I'd covered the Green Bay Packers. I'd been to, NFL playoff games and NBA and Major League Baseball. Like, I covered some big sports. But I would go to these late model races and I'd be like, look how cool this is. Does no one else, like, see how cool this is? Like, this is really cool. Like, no one's paying attention to this, right? And that's kind of like what motivates me now is, and I think, and Kyle Larson was a big piece of this, the outside world is the term I like to use, is finally starting to go like, oh, dirt track racing's kind of cool, right? And that's what motivates me is I want them to see this slice of Americana that also happens to be wildly entertaining, that these little sub-worlds and niches within niches, whether it's Super Dirt Week in the big block world or the World 100 or the Prairie Dirt Classic for me, I want them to care about it like I care about it. And that's one of the things with Dirt, the docuseries that we aired on Fox Sports 1 that we produced. People start to care about it. They're like, this is really cool. That probably is the single greatest motivator is I want someone to care about this. And I want someone to feel like they've got a place to go to find information out about the thing I want them to care about. Yeah. And we're not perfect. We have a ways to go. Dirt on Dirt, I think, exactly was that in late model racing. FloRacing is not that for every genre of motorsports we're got, but I kind of have a vision for how I want to build that. So
that's amazing. Okay. I feel like we're connecting on a whole new level. All right. We are connecting on a whole new level. So that kind of has me thinking, like, I feel like you're a very creative person. Very, very creative person. You're welcome. But how do you get those juices flowing with all that you do? Like you said, I mean, you aren't able to do the podcasting and doing the personal on-air stuff. So, like, are we going to foresee something in the future, or do we have, like, little avenues that help kind of feed that hunger?
One thing that for me is the crazy thing is, as much as I love motorsports, like college basketball and pro football are probably my two favorite sports, and people are like grabbing their hearts when I say that. I love motorsports. It's my life. But I am a sports media consumer, like a crazy sports media consumer. Like, right, my TV's on over here, like First Take will be on all day. Yeah. I consume so much sports media that I try to take some of those things and how can we apply them to motorsports, particularly at the short track racing level where, if NASCAR and the NBA may have done something similar, NASCAR and Major League Baseball may have done something similar, but never at the short track level do you see some of that stuff. So I draw so much of my creativity from sports media that exists, amalgam of ideas. How do you birth them together and make them cool? If you go out I have two offices. I have this office and my shop out there that I have an unbelievable gym in that rarely gets used. I know you are a workout freak. You would love it. I do not use it near enough.
Welcome visit. Sure.
You are constantly working out. I know that. I have one of my walls out there is a whiteboard. It's just a giant whiteboard. My wall is all whiteboard. My desk out there is a whiteboard. And every time something pops into my head, I'm writing it down. Just writing it down. So that's, I consume sports media. That drives me. I'm constantly writing my ideas down. One of the challenges at Flow is when I was the judge, jury, and executioner at Dirt on Dirt, I could make it happen immediately. It's harder at Flow. It's a bigger structure. I have a marketing department, a content department, and there's budgets and things like that. So things move a little slower than I might want them to, but I try to work within those confines the best I can.
That's amazing. Okay, because I have in my phone a notes section.
Oh, of course.
Just for, like, literally it's called brain dump. It's just brain dump because I could be in, like, listen, when I don't know if you do. Do you listen to podcasts?
I do.
You do. Okay. I mean, I would hope you do. So I listen to podcasts when I work out, believe it or not. I know it sounds weird to a lot of people, but it's like that's my only time when I'm like in the zone. I can listen to something. I can put, like, I don't know, you don't have to worry about anything else. And so here I am with my phone mid set and I'm like, no, in the middle of, like, in between sets, I should say. And I'm dumping all this information. I'm like, this is genius. This is good. So I like the whiteboard idea, though.
Yeah, nice. I would recommend everyone needs a whiteboard. It's just because the older I get to, now that I have crested 40 and moved past it, I find that my memory is not what it once was. Yeah. So the writing down really helps me. But yeah, it's I would recommend it. That wall behind you, you tell Mike, tell your husband, let's get a big whiteboard back there for
Got a
you.
chain wall right here. I can put a whiteboard on.
There we go. I like that.
You're gonna come in and think, I don't know, we're hunting someone down or something crazy.
Draw you pieces of yarn on to like
Yes, this is the goal, and here we are.
serial killer stuff. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So okay, so you kind of touched on it. I mean, obviously Flow Sports, but like let's circle back to Flow Racing. Do you get to go to like the flat track snowmobile stuff, or are you just dirt?
So yeah, mostly dirt. I will do obviously, in candidly, dirt track racing is our biggest audiences, biggest subscriber base is the short track dirt stuff. Whether that's Lucas Oil, High Limit now especially. So most of my attention is spent there. I will go to pavement races. Like our partnership with NASCAR is really important to us. I'll go to New Smyrna. I'll go to Daytona for stuff in February and do that. I've not gone to the snowcross stuff. I did cover it when I used to work in Wisconsin all the time. I've not been to it yet. I do want to go to American Flat Track race. American Flat Track is on Flow now. Those guys are nuts. And they race, they race at Port Royal and Sonoy and some of those places that our late model and big block guys race at too. So I used to do Mandee 145 nights a year. I will do probably 60 now. And of course, when you go to 60, everyone's like, oh, where you been? I'm like, I'm still going to 60 races a year. That feels like a lot, you know? I just don't have time to go as many, but I will try to get to the other genres as much as I can. I went to a drag race this winter, which was awesome. That's one thing. I don't know if you've ever been to a drag race. Their hospitality stuff, they blow us away as far as hospitality stuff go. It's so awesome, and we need more of that in dirt track racing. We need to figure out how to do that.
I always forget. I guess, was it like a brand ambassador, like way back when? I did like when I was in college, you know, you couldn't have a full-time job. I'm like trying to find ways to make money. And I think it was Valvoline. I'm not really sure what it was, but it was one of like the sponsors over at Englishtown before they shut down. Okay. And so I worked there, and it's insane. It is insane. The things that they have to offer. Meanwhile, we have just like t-shirt trailers, but it's okay. I
know. It's like there's like, I went into the pits, and Courtney Enders, who works for us, is phenomenal. She's one of my favorite humans on the planet. Her family is embedded in drag racing, and they're like this giant like cookout during the event in the pits under this amazing tent, and like drinks and cocktails. And I'm like, yeah, why are we not doing this? Like, we need to do more of this. Again, trying to pull something from another genre, and I want to do it at some high limit races this year and figure out how to do it.
I love that. And I actually, I just interviewed Jacqueline Rumley.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know Jacqueline.
J-Rum, you bet.
Yeah, love her. And we were kind of talking about that, is like, you know, there's a fine line of like, you want to have this whole, I don't know, respectable vibe. Yeah. Yet, like, you want to make it this high to go along with like football, basketball, you know, high-end stuff. But at the same time, it's like there's a threshold of like hitting corporate. Yeah. You know, kind of like not still being grassroots, but still up-leveling it just enough.
That's like one of the great challenges we face is I'll just be honest, we want corporate money,
of course,
but we don't want it to feel too corporate at the event, right? And we've not quite hit that perfect combo yet. I think short track racing is definitely more popular than it has ever been. There are challenges, like financial challenges this sport is facing. Yeah. But I think the sheer amount of eyeballs on our sport more than ever. So like you said, you don't want it to feel sterile when you're at an event, but we also want their sponsorship dollars. So maybe you're the person, maybe you're the one to solve that for us. How do we walk the line?
Let me get my whiteboard.
If you had your whiteboard, we could cancel this and start whiteboarding right now. So,
I think if we put our brains together, we can definitely make.
We can do it. We can solve it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I feel circling back is like you had talked about like the outreach, right? That these tracks and these series that they can get when they partner with Flow. And I remember when you guys first started coming around, I don't know when it was, like in the Northeast for us with the modifieds. And I thought it was absolutely genius because it was actually this past year about Wall Stadium for the Turkey Derby, asphalt modifieds, and you have people that never go to a dirt race and they're like, oh, we watched that race the other weekend. And to me, like, that's everything. You know, like, where else can you have like the subscription and be able to watch dirt or asphalt, sprint cars or modifieds, you know? But with a lot of tracks here in the Northeast, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know how it is out west. I'm up here in my little mud turtle world here, but there's different options for live streaming up here, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there are out west too. I've talked about this on a podcast like way back when, how different streaming companies offer different kind of kickbacks based on whatever it is, like a set price or it's per viewer, whatever that might be. But can you kind of give us like just a glimpse as to how a partnership works, either a certain track or with a series? Because some tracks this year you guys aren't covering and people are like, well, screw you. And I'm like, whoa, easy. Okay. I don't know how it works, but
Yeah, sure. I will lift the curtain as much as I can. Right?
Thank you.
So there's a couple different ways we do partnerships. We do partnerships, and the amount of misconceptions about FloRacing that I see, like I will read things whether on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, it blow me away how wrong they are. So I will do my best now to try to dispel some of that and give you a glimpse of how they work.
Yes.
Partnerships on a couple levels. One, series, right? So we partner with Lucas Oil, Short Track Super Series, Brett Deo Short Track Super Series, USAC, High Limit, et cetera, where we pay a rights fee to the series. The series, in turn, typically would pay a piece of that to the racetrack, right? We also do, I'll come back to more on that in a second. We also do partnerships at the track level, right? Which I know Bridgeport is a big one in your area that we are not covering this year that we did in the past, where we would pay a rights fee directly to the racetrack. And then their racetrack's their money to keep, and they do whatever they want with it, right? Hey, we want to broadcast X amount of events. Here's how much we're going to pay you. Obviously, the promoter agrees to that, signs a contract. It's not like it ever catches the promoter by surprise. So series level, racetrack level, and then we'll do one-off events, right? If there's a racetrack that's having just a big event that they've never had before, we don't want to stream a whole season. We want to have one event. We will agree to a rights fee for that event, stream that one event. Promoter signs a contract, and we do it that way. There are pitfalls, positives and negatives to some of those models. Obviously, in the series level, we, by and large, most promoters are content with the amount that the series gives them. But yeah, I'm not going to say that's perfect every time. There are promoters that are like, I wish the series was passing through a little bit more. As we go on, typically, we hope that level increases, right? We hope that as our partnership with Lucas extends years and USAC and whatever, that the money obviously passes through and finds its way to the promoter. We hope that. But we also think there's an enormous value in a racetrack. Like I am at my racetrack, and I'm a part owner of Fairbury Speedway. My racetrack has a Lucas race and an Outlaws race. We know the gigantic, so I can speak on this on both sides. I'm a promoter and I'm a work in streaming. The value that Lucas and the Outlaws bring us is enormous. We know that. So there is value in that series coming in here. So we don't gouge them and beat them up on streaming money because they also bring a ton of value to our racetrack. So that's we hear that a lot. And I see Flo never pays the racetracks. Well, any partnership with the racetrack, we definitely pay the racetrack. Most of our partnerships with the series, that money passes through to the racetrack on some level. And then, of course, anytime we're doing a one-off event, we don't just show up and stream it and don't talk to the promoter. Of course, the promoter is getting paid for that. As far as some that we are doing and some that we are not, part of that is COVID-induced, and I will explain that a little bit. When we sell the Flow in 2019, September, right? What happens 5 months later? Global pandemic, right? So the entire motorsports world shuts down for a month and a half to 2 months. When we come back and start streaming again from 2000, let's call it late April 2020, exactly. You couldn't not stream anything, and it worked. Everything worked. I'm saying like 3,000 to win, hobby stock race in the middle of nowhere, 300 subscriptions, right? And we all got fooled a little bit by that, me included. And I think some of us went like, part of this, but it lasted longer than we thought it might, right? And we got fooled a little bit and thought, could it be like this forever? And it couldn't. That doesn't mean we still have 5 regional late model tours. We still have regional sprint car series. We still have Port Royal weekly, Fairbury weekly. We're not getting out of that altogether, but some partnerships we had to reevaluate about what was working and what wasn't. And that doesn't mean we'll never be back at Bridgeport as an example. I hope we are one day. But this year we couldn't make it work. Hopefully we are able to go back. So I think I answered your question. There's not an exact science to this. And COVID sort of changed the perception there for a year or two about what was working and what wasn't working.
Well, I hope you know is that I might be, this weekend in particular, like I might be at one track and I'm still watching on FloRacing wherever you're, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like like we can double dip, but I do wish, because I saw that spike in my YouTube channel
Right.
during COVID, because like people weren't leaving the house, people wanted to still, and that it still just blows my mind how fast to me it seemed how fast live streaming took off. A lot of people were against it. I mean, that's your good old grassroots,
Right.
old school fans, but now, like, I used to have like PTSD of missing races, and now, listen, like I like you, I was hitting 100+ races, driving all across the Northeast, and exhausted and burnt out. But now knowing, like, I can watch it from my phone. I could be with my brother watching my husband. I could be with my nephew watching my dad. It doesn't matter, and it's just amazing.
And the idea is to keep, like, I firmly believe this, you keep the fan connected to the thing they're interested in. And if you don't do that, they have a reason to break from it. So I want people doing that. I want people at a racetrack watching stuff because I want them to turn to their friends with their phone and go, did you see this? And XYZ, right? The more connected you can constantly be to something, the more invested in it you will be. And I try to tell, and again, I'm a promoter, should mean they should want to come watch your event, right? And I have promoters tell me all the time, like, well, this, or I'm trying to sell more. Like, we're not hot dog salesmen. You're a race promoter, right? And I know concessions are important, and I'm not pretending that they're not. I know it's a piece of the promoting game. But that's the one thing that racing has done, or streaming has done, is when the eyes of the world can watch your product, sometimes you have to modify your product a little bit, right? And we've been forced to do that at Fairbury, at the racetrack that I'm in the ownership group of man, some of this stuff wasn't very good. We kind of sucked at this. We took too much time here. We're not good enough here. And we tried to reevaluate that and get better because of streaming instead of getting worse. And I know not every track has the exact same set of circumstances, and I sympathize with promoters that don't. But I want them to lean into it instead of putting their hands up and leaning away from it.
Are you enjoying this episode, want even more, or want a closer connection to the DTU fam? Join us over in Club DTU, where you'll receive early access to all of our podcasts, live race day updates, exclusive content, special merchandise, discounts, a community chat, personal recognition, and so much more. All inside one place, Club DTU.
I feel like this kind of segues into when you guys started doing these documentaries. Like, just chilling, right? I definitely want to know what kind of, whose ever brilliant idea that was yours. Good job, okay? But, like, talk about, well, one, I guess just tell me, like, how did that even come about? Because, like, in my mind, the ones that stuck out, like, to me, Larson. Then you did, what is it, Dirty Dollars. And then, of course, Dirt. And you aired it on freaking TV. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we have a great films team. I want to start there. Ray Machuca heads up our films team. He's one of the first guys I met. He's been at Flo for a long time. He loves to tell a story about how he flew to Ethiopia to cover I think it was a track meet, and flew to, I might have that wrong, a track meet, and then flew to Madison, Wisconsin from Ethiopia to cover another track meet. So Ray's great. He heads up our films team. Matthew Dillner really gives a ton of input. Matthew's been a huge hire for us that was very important for us to get. I was trying to spearhead that as much as possible. And Tim Truex, who, Loud Pedal Productions, who I think everybody knows. Those things, it's not just enough to be a live racing warehouse to me. You have to, how do you make people connect with these drivers and personalities? It's not enough to go watch number 33 and watch him make laps at the track. I want you to know what he or she is about. I want you to know what their crew is about, their family's about, their backstory. That's not rocket science, right? That's like every filmmaker and or content creator and or whether it's CBS or NBC over time will tell you, you create the connection with the viewer. So I'm fortunate to work at a place that Flo that believes the exact same things that I do, that's very important. And films and content that we release on a regular basis is like just a cornerstone of retention for us too. I'm going to watch a couple of big block races. Maybe I don't want to keep a subscription. No, you should, because we're going to do a series of films or whatever on this that we want people to stay subscribed, and we want them to stay connected to the athlete, in this case, the racer.
It's more than just
right. It's you must have, it's connective tissue. You have to have the connective tissue between these guys and the fans, and I think we've done that, right? Like Justin Grant, to me, was kind of the breakout star of Dirt. I learned so much about Justin Grant, his relationship with his wife, and I loved how angry he got when he raced, right? And like him fixing the car. And I mean, those are just, people will never forget those things. You may forget some races, but you'll never forget those things. And those are super important to me, and those mean a lot to us.
Yeah. So, okay. I think so. Dirty Dollars. I think that was was it one episode or two?
It was just one. It was kind of like, I think it was about an hour film, right? About an hour film. The balloons, I love that. You love Dirty Dollars.
Yes. This is what happens when I talk with my hands. So they've been chilling down here.
I do like the thumbs up. They go up.
Yeah, it does that. I haven't figured out how to drop yet.
Yeah.
So, okay. So one episode, Dirty Dollars. Like, how time consuming is it to make a documentary like that?
It depends. Dirty Dollars was kind of Matthew Dillner's baby, where he drove down there, and it didn't just take a day or anything. But that one, we have so much intimate knowledge of Jonathan Davenport, and I do too. Jonathan's a great friend of mine. Those are a little bit easier. Still time consuming, still very time consuming. Yeah. Dirt, the docuseries Dirt, oh God, that is dozens of camera people and months of work and flying. We went with Kyle to get his new motorhome. And
I watch it, and being like on the side of editing and all that I do, I'm just like in awe of how it's all pieced together. Yep. The story is told, the shots, it's beautiful. Yeah.
And expensive too, right? And that's the other thing I want people to realize is the common refrain I hear is how much money FloRacing must be making. Like to build a documentary like that is hundreds of thousands of dollars. People don't really ever put those things together, right? Or the giant staff we have, what it costs to pay them, costs to operate this vertical. We are investing back into this thing as much as possible. Yeah. And we have a great relationship with Fox now because of that, where you mentioned maybe I wouldn't be surprised to see some racing on Fox, our racing one day, right? Live even.
That's a goal.
And more documentaries to air on Fox. And that's all built because we had the vision to do the films. They love them. Now, in Fox's studio, they have a Dirt poster hanging in there, right alongside the NFL stuff and everything else. So, talk about that corporate money and those kind of things. Like, these things all lead to those things, but these things are very expensive to do. So, yes, we are making money, but it's going right to these things to do.
So, okay, how involved are you with the documentaries? Because I have a question. Are you
Sure.
involved?
My main involvement is what we call SME, subject matter expert, right? Okay. So the films team will say, we do ideate ideas. Here's ideas we have for documentaries. We'll get in a room. We'll create a document. Like the start of the World of Outlaw late models beginning in 2004, the Dirty Dozen, like that's an idea we've got right now that I want to see kind of flushed through. We ideate a bunch of ideas. The films team will pick 5 or 6 a year they think they can execute on. And then frequently they will come to me and say, this piece about Davenport, tell me a little bit more about his 2012 season. And, that's where I'll kind of come in. Or why is, North Wilkesboro, we had a big event there, a Cars Tour event. Tell me a little bit about North Wilkesboro. Like that, they come to me for those things mainly. And I'll get early cuts and tell them what I like and what I don't like from early cuts. But our team's really good, so I don't usually have to do too much of that.
So I asked because I've worked with some people in the past that have YouTube channels that are freaking ridiculously, successful. But the thing I have noticed in racing is the race day videos or the weekday stuff, like whatever it might be, I don't know how it's going to play out. Yeah. There's other content creators, I guess we'll umbrella them content creators that they can say, all right, this is my goal. Like, this is what I want the video to be like, or the storyline. Well, at the end of the day, on a Saturday night, and we had a really crappy night, I'm like, wow, this was so much fun. Everyone's gonna watch this. So with your documentaries, like, I guess, do you guys kind of like lay down the vibe, like this is this to this, or do you just, when you guys followed at, what was it, the Chili Bowl? Yeah, when you guys did Justin, like, you had no idea it was going to pan out like that.
No, you kind of start with, like, we kind of tagline a lot of stuff. Like, we knew the name of the documentary kind of, like, steers what our vision of it is going to be. Right. And then, but you don't want, like, when Justin Grant is thrashing in his car, screaming at his crew, that still can be kind of, you hope it's part of the vibe of what the story is. So Dirt was Dirt, the last great American sport. And so, you've been around this long enough, Mandee, you try to, that's the essence of what the piece is. While everyone else in the world is paying attention to the NFL or Formula One or whatever else, here's this thing happening right in your country that is incredible. And it's probably the last sport in this country that's this big that goes unnoticed. It doesn't cross the threshold of mass popularity, but it's also gigantic. And it's happening right in front of you and you don't even really know it. It's really the last great American sport. So that's kind of steers you, right? And for Jonathan, it was the same way. The name of his ranch is Dirty Dollars, right?
Yeah.
Jonathan won $2 million that year in racing. And Jonathan, if you know anything about him, his humble beginnings are insane. And him and his beautiful wife, Rachel, who I love to death, who is a firecracker, and I would rather fight your husband than Rachel Davenport. And I tell her that all the time.
I'm sure.
She would whip my ass. You know, like the Dirty Dollars is, they call their ranch that because kind of their background. I'm like, well, that should be the name of the film. So you kind of start with like, here's how it's going to go. You're kind of doing night of stuff. It's different, right? You're reacting to hopefully your husband not being terrible right that night. You want him to have a good run. But your stuff's harder. It's turn and burn in a way. That's kind of hard. You know, you're constantly having to come up with stuff on the go.
I know. Listen, I'm surprised my brother hasn't contacted you yet, because I think it was the beginning of last year, and it must have been after the Davenport one, because when did you guys release that?
That was last year early, I think.
Oh, yeah, because good old Billy texts me, I think you can do that. And I'm like, you think I can do that with my iPhone and a GoPro? Okay.
Send him over. I'll show him what went into that one. Send him over.
I'll have my people. I'll talk to my people and have him talk to his people. I'm like, you're blowing smoke, but
it's hard. Those are hard. They are hard. They're hard to do, and they have to be cinematic and pretty and music, right? The music's got to be right. So yeah, send him over. I'll talk to Billy about that.
Thank you. So, going off the documentaries is, I'm seeing a lot of more people pop up creating, whether it's a YouTube channel, really going harder on social media. You know, how do you feel that can and would play an effect with what you guys do? Do you think, you could partner with people that are doing that, or would it benefit you guys? Because obviously, again, you're doing your own documentaries, but how can you essentially collaborate?
For us I think the more interest, the better. Like Jason Fager, who's a racer here in Bloomington, has a pretty successful YouTube channel he started. Kind of the gold standard in dirt track racing is Hunt the Front, right? One of the guys who runs Hunt the Front used to work for me twice. Joshua Joyner was an employee of mine twice. Okay. The more interest those guys can create, inevitably the better. Selfishly, it's going to be better for us. I like this Jason Fager. I'd like to watch him race. Probably going to do that on FloRacing at some point, right? So that is a trickle-down effect that helps us. I think also it's a revenue stream, man. Racing is expensive and it's tough. There are some of these guys who are making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. Not all of them. I know some of these guys are hearing this going, you're crazy. I made 10 grand last year, Rigsby. But it's 10 grand they didn't have before, right? Maybe that pays a lot of bills for them. So it's an auxiliary revenue driver for them. It creates interest in their brands, which their brands will appear on our brand. So that's a good thing. I always have the bigger bugaboo I've got is Twitter reporters, which that's become a thing now as people I love the people that are so passionate about racing and into it, but there's people constantly wanting to break news on Twitter and maybe it's just because I'm a journalist and I'm rubbed wrong by it, and that's my own personal problem. Yeah. But it's people that want to constantly break news that's often inaccurate, and just be careful. This industry, Mandee, as you know, is about this big. So we may know that Hudson O'Neal is leaving the Rocket House car, but we respect Mark Richards and we respect Hudson, and we can't rush out to it without them wanting us to do that, right? You don't want to burn those bridges. So the YouTube stuff I create, the Twitter aficionados, I could dial down a bit. It would be okay with that.
You're telling me Twitter didn't exist when you were in college, did it?
No, I know you're putting the math together on how old I am. Facebook didn't come out to 2004, so it's I didn't graduate college without Facebook even. So
if it makes you feel better, I am older than Google, if that counts. Okay, I saw that GIF for.
I don't know if it does or not. Maybe, I guess.
At least I'm in that range. Okay.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, that's true. That's true. God. I'll accept it for today.
Thank you. So, what do you foresee, in the future? Share with whatever your heart desires, for our sport, as far as coverage goes. Because I feel you and I were on the same page as what our desires are, what we feel will help the sport. But as far as coverage goes, you've really been tapping into the documentaries. I don't know, what do you foresee going forward?
I think that we all kind of, and you have to be careful. I'm going to be careful when I say this.
Yeah.
Like when I'm watching a basketball game, a crazy college basketball fan, and they change like just some different camera angle. I'm like, we've been watching basketball the same way for 50 years. Don't do this awful camera angle. But then I will watch a short track race and go, we've all kind of been covering it the same way for the last 12 to 15 years. There's got to be some new innovation in the way we're covering it.
I like that.
And I don't think that's like some big secret that I'm giving out, but I'm starting to explore some of those things. How do we change the way we view this a little bit? I don't want to give out everything that I'm working on, but I want people to tune in and kind of go, oh, this is a different experience.
I like that.
I'm used to watching the 2 roof cameras and maybe one in the infield, and you want those. Those are your baseline cameras that you want to have, right? You know, the cars, follow the cars at a steady pace. But I think there's a lot of other things to do and we can do. And for us, as we start to think about 2025 already, I would like to implement, and I want people to tune in and go, man, this is different. This really looks different. This is different. I've not really seen this before, and this is innovative and on the cutting edge, and I like what Flo's doing here. So I think that's kind of the next frontier is how do we change how we view motorsports at the short track level?
Well, my idea, I'm going to tell you, and hopefully you run with it before this comes out.
I'm writing it down. I've got my notepad. I'm writing it down right now.
No, it needs to go on the whiteboard. If you were able to offer me to just watch my husband, you
Solo
know,
cam, yeah.
I know this is like we're hitting, I don't know, circa 2065 or something. You know? Right, I'm looking at it like you need a field of 24 cameramen just to follow one car. You know, like the amount of people, and it irritates me because I understand is like I don't know what the wording is for it, but like people will watch FloRacing and a lot of people don't realize like the cameramen aren't really your cameramen, I suppose.
Right.
You know,
right.
and so they're like, oh, they only watched the leader. I never saw Billy once. And I'm like, well, if Billy was any good, that's his problem. Okay. But it would be really nice whenever the future exists of like,
that's on my radar. That's on my radar for sure. And it is
possible.
It's cost prohibitive. I think the average age of a shooter in our sports probably around 52 to 55 years old. And what I mean by that is we're already struggling for cameramen. We're beginning a process of training and working with a lot of young people. So to suddenly drop 24 of them in would be difficult and cost prohibitive, right? That would be, you know, even $300, $400, $500 a night times an extra 20 guys. Oh my God, now the budget's upside down. But things like that, I have an idea for that that I want to maybe utilize where it's not ISO'd on Billy or your husband every night, but it would be capable of pulling off what you are looking for while we work on 24 cameras. Because I do think it's sort of a choose your own adventure, right, is what I would like to do. But I always say this too. When you tune into NBC, and NBC's got the Summer Olympics on, and here's the mile, right? They're running the mile. No one goes in, here's 14th place in the mile. He is now 47 seconds back. No one does that, right? Here are the first 5 guys that are running the mile that could maybe win the mile, right? So it's the same thing, right? These are the guys that are going to win the race, which is the whole point of us being here.
Well, it's like they're fighting for our attention. They just need to be in the top 5. So I get it.
Be a little faster.
Exactly. So I get it. So some nights when I don't go to the races and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, all right, they're not in the top 10. I'm like, I'm never gonna see them. I'll just watch on the app. It's fine.
I feel like your brother and your husband would listen to you though. So just light the fire for those two. Would you light the fire?
I put them in their place every night. Don't worry.
I know. I have no doubt.
Call every night after the races, and I'm like, what did you do wrong? That was unacceptable. Okay, so I think one of my last flow-ish questions, but it could be also related to you, is what do you feel the hurdle is, you know, for either you or for Flo? Because I really do appreciate like the things that you've been sharing, because it shows me like you guys are always working to progress, because if you're not growing, you're dying, and obviously FloRacing is not dying, so that's very reassuring. You're growing, you're looking into new avenues, but what do you feel has been like maybe a hurdle for yourself?
Yeah, and I think it's a hurdle difference for me, and anyone that works with me will tell you this, is like, well, you run your own company with 30 employees, and then all of a sudden you get dropped into it. And listen, Flo gives me an incredible leash. Like, right, I'm kind of running around just trying to do whatever I can and want to do. But that's different for me personally, right? Is like, oh, I have to check with someone on something. Shit, like I don't want to do that. But that goes pretty well usually. I'd say the biggest hurdle for us is scale. that I talked about earlier. So we go produce Lucas races, we produce high limit races, we produce Eldora, we produce the Chili Bowl, but then we're also a warehouse for feeds to come in and pass those through. NASCAR provides us production for all of our races. Some of our drag racing provides us production. Dirt Track Digest, our friends at Dirt Track Digest provide us production.
Yeah.
And when you don't have across the board, when you don't have full autonomous control of all those things, it's hard. It's hard to build a baseline of this is how we handle this, because some races we're producing, some races we're not. Some races have our graphics, some races don't. We're constantly trying to clean that up and build baseline processes for these things. But the problem is we don't stop growing. So it's like at the beginning, we just had USAC and Eldora. Shit, then we've got Lucas. Then we add high limit. So just as soon as you build a process, you continue to grow it. And I'd like to spend the remainder of 24 and into 25. Maybe that's part of the reason we've let go of some things too, is we're getting overwhelmed at scale. I want there to be a baseline production set of specs for the feed providers, NASCAR, Dirt Track Digest. I want them to all be on our graphics. Right now it's just get the content in the door and get it out and let everybody enjoy it. I really want it to be a little more uniform, and that's probably our biggest challenge, and why sometimes not every production we have is perfect is because, we have 1,800 races, and it's hard to manage that, and part of my job is figuring out how do we do it correctly, and we've not landed the plane perfectly yet, but that's probably our biggest challenge we still face is that.
It's quality. The quality.
Our best is great. You get into that middle and sort of the lower tier stuff, and we're not all the way there with it yet. We got to get better, and I want someone to hear this go, oh, Rigsby is aware of that. He's not a huge asshole. He does know they need to improve it, and yes, I lose sleep about it every night when it's not good. So yes.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine that. This is why I work for myself, because if I were to work for anyone and had to get people's problems dumped onto my lap, I would lose my shit. I would absolutely lose my shit. I would not have a job. No way.
Well, you're going to work in our films department soon, it sounds like. Okay. So we're going to have to figure out how to get you coached up for that. So
just make me in the top 5 cameramen, okay?
Yeah, right. You just follow your brother or your husband every night. So
perfect. You'll know where to find me.
I will.
Okay. So I kind of usually like to close up my podcast with one solid tip, but I want you to offer me 2 here. Okay, you're going to give us a bonus tip. So one bonus tip is, what advice would you give to someone who kind of wants to be where you are? In broadcasting, in FloRacing, in streaming, or whatever it might be. What one tip can you come up with?
Sure. The first one's easy, and whenever I speak at universities, I always say the same thing, and I put it up on the board. First thing I write when I walk into the room is be relentless. Period. End of story. There is no substitute for relentlessness. We have a kid that works for us now. His name is Aaron Clay, and Aaron works mainly on the dirt on dirt side. And I can send him anything at any hour of the night, anytime. And listen, I get it. I'm not saying that you should be behest to work all hours of the day. However, Aaron is a bulldog, and he does not quit ever, and he does not stop ever. And I look at him and go, okay, that kid's got a future, and I like working with him. And it was the same way for me when I was starting. There was so many nights, Mandee, when I was driving from Phoenix City, Alabama to Potomac, Maryland overnight to make the next race. There was 1,000 opportunities to quit, and we would not quit. What a cliche, right? Don't quit. But that's it. That's it. I'm not a rocket scientist, right? I'm not brilliant. I'm not Einstein or Newton. I just wouldn't quit. Don't quit. Be relentless. And there are going to be moments where you have the opportunity to stop. If you want this, don't stop. Be available constantly. And the people who are decision makers, like the Mandee Pauches and the Michael Rigsbys and the Brian Dunlaps, they notice that. We notice that. Holy shit, this kid wants it. This guy or girl wants this thing. Don't stop. Be relentless.
I think I'm gonna clip this and just put this on repeat. I love that. I always tell people it's the only way to fail is if you quit.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
One sentence. The only way to fail is if you quit.
There's 1 out of every 2 million people is genius level, right? So none of us are geniuses, right? Here we just wouldn't quit.
Exactly.
That's it. I'm not a genius. I just wouldn't stop because I wanted this thing. So don't stop. Don't stop.
You wholeheartedly had a decision. You believed in it, even if your best friend didn't believe in it. And you kept going.
What an idiot, right?
I know. It's his loss. So, okay. Second tip is I kind of want to turn it towards like drivers and teams here. For those who either, have a social media presence or are working on building a social media presence, what would you say would be the biggest tip you would offer them to help them grow?
I think people don't, this is going to sound weird, people care less about the racing.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think you have done a brilliant job of when I watch your stuff, and I mean that wholeheartedly, is we can watch you on the racetrack when we go to the racetrack, or when we're watching the live broadcast, or when we're watching the highlights. Part of the growth of Hunt the Front and what those guys have done and why Drive to Survive has become so wickedly popular on Netflix is because it's more than just about the racing. I want to know you. I want to know you personally, right? Like Jason Fager's got this gigantic dog named Baby with the biggest head you've ever seen in your life. And I tell him all the time, when you put Baby on, people go nuts for Baby, right?
Oh, yeah.
Jason's wife, Abby, is a great friend of ours, and I want to see Abby more. And Jason's mom is a race mom, like an amazing race. I want to see that stuff. So so show us that stuff more and be consistency. Mandee, this is another thing you're good at. You have to be consistent. It kills me that I can't consistently podcast because of all my other stuff. So it's almost like I don't want to do it because you can't. The best podcast in the world, whether it's, forget whatever you think about Joe Rogan politically or anything like that, but he's a repetitive guy, right? You know what to expect. Bill Simmons, same thing for me every Sunday night. You have to be consistent, and you have to show people things that are outside the scope of racing. And I'm not saying never talk about racing, but your personalities, man, that's one thing that makes short track racing so cool. The personalities we have are incredible. Show us that, be consistent, and it will work. It will work.
Yeah. And you're seeing that on Netflix. You're seeing people coming out with more and more documentaries.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I kind of liked Taylor Swift, but now I might be, I'm not going to call myself a Swiftie.
Huge Swiftie, gigantic Swiftie right
After
here.
I watched her documentary, I was like, holy crap, I love her. Okay. Yeah. So
Gigantic Swiftie. Can't wait to go to another concert this year. All in, Mandee Pauch. I'm all in. So
all in. You got to be all in.
That's
oh my
right.
God. Well, Michael, this was amazing. Seriously, I really, truly appreciate you taking the time to be on here, to share all of this. This was incredibly valuable. So look forward to seeing wherever you might be in your 60-some races this year. Hopefully we cross paths somewhere. That'd be great.
I'm trying to get Brett to bring his guys west a little more and try to do some stuff out around Illinois. We'll see if he bites on that or not. But you and I know, at least the World Finals, we'll see each other somewhere this year for sure.
We will in passing. I'll say, hey, you do your thing. We're on. Yeah, we move.
I know. Whenever we see each other, it's like 13 seconds. Text me, right?
Yeah, I'll see you in a couple months. Great talk.
Right.
But thank you again, everyone, for listening, for watching. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Definitely make sure to subscribe. Share this. Either tag Rigsby, tag FloRacing, tag Dirt on Dirt. Give them all a shout out. Like this, share it. And hopefully we'll see you guys all at the races. So